I often think of a grapevine as there are emotions that got pushed underground because they weren't welcome above ground. And so when we think about like the whispers or the DMs of like, oh, this, can you even believe this? The antidote to that sort of whispering jokes about the boss is just bring that conversation above ground. So my very best trick is something that I call it.
Welcome to the Carey Nieuwhof Leadership Podcast. You ever been stuck under a bad boss? Like maybe you got one right now. Just kind of love your work, but you hate your job? Well, what do? Bree Groff is an expert in this, and she gives advice that I've never heard of, quite frankly. What to do to take agency and make your job a lot better. And then what do you do if you're that boss? What if you're watching this and you're like, uh-oh, that's me? She's got a strategy that actually is so easy to do. You can do it. You can fix this in the next hour. Hey, I'm really excited you joined us for this episode. You can like, subscribe, leave a comment to join the conversation. You can also click the link and join us in the Art of Leadership Academy, where you can get show notes and also a more curated and cultivated conversation than you get on open social media with a whole bunch of other church leaders, thousands upon thousands of other church leaders diving in and having a conversation, solving the real problems you're facing. So check that out at theartofleadershipacademy.com. Join for free today. Now, a word from today's partners, and then we'll dive into my conversation with Bree Groff. This episode is brought to you by my Art of Leadership Academy. Hey, if this podcast is part of your leadership rhythm, I've got something you're going to love. Inside the Art of Leadership Academy, you can get exclusive access to the show notes for every episode, plus a place to discuss every episode with other church leaders just like you, and also with me. And best yet, it's troll-free. It's kind of like your own behind-the-scenes breakdown of each episode with real-time conversations about how to actually apply what you're learning. And the best part, totally free to join, right? You probably listen to podcasts like I do. You're on your bike, you're in the backyard, you're on a run, you're at the gym or whatever, but all the lessons are solo. And you know what happens? You don't really apply anything. So you can become part of a life-giving community, no noise, no spam, just a group of church leaders helping you grow faster and lead more effectively. So I want you to get started today. All you have to do is create a free account, click the link in the description of this episode, or go to theartofleadershipacademy.com. A few clicks, you're in. I can't wait to see you inside. Today's episode is brought to you by OneAccord. You know, as church leaders, we've all faced needs that we don't have the resources to meet. For example, a lot of you lead multi-ethnic churches. Well, what about reaching people who don't speak your language? And then you got to hire like skilled interpreters who also understand the Bible and church culture. That's why I'm excited to tell you about OneAccord. OneAccord is a real-time AI-powered translation platform designed in response to this challenge. It's designed by a software engineer who also happens to be a pastor's daughter. It's exclusively designed for the church and trusted by over 100 churches to provide real-time translation into over 40 languages. Think about what this could do to your online as well. OneAccord offers an easy-to-use platform, a friendly support team of church interpreters and sound techs, and flexible plans starting at just $150 a month. Best of all, our listeners can try it out for free with 3 hours of translation credit. Just visit oneaccord.ai/Carey. That's ONE accord.ai/Carey. Today's episode is brought to you by Belay. You weren't called to be busy, you were called to build something that lasts. If your days are packed, and your mission feels more like a moving target than a guiding star, maybe it's time to head over and do something differently. Maybe it's time to make space for what matters most. Belay knows your highest impact starts when you stop trying to do it all. And if you're overwhelmed trying to keep up with the day-to-day finances of your organization, Belay's expert bookkeepers, accounting clerks, and fractional CFOs can help. So take the first step toward financial peace of mind by downloading Belay's free mission-based budgeting guide today. This resource includes templates, step-by-step guides, and a training video to make aligning your budget and your mission simple. How do you get it? Well, text the word Carey to 55123 for your free download. That's CAREY to 55123. Lead with purpose. Let Belay handle the rest. Well, Bree, it's great to have you on the podcast. Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, Carey.
Yeah. So a lot of leaders take work so seriously. I'm probably guilty of this, that they can squeeze the joy out of it. I'm having a lot more fun than I did in my 30s. It's funny, this came up at a community group we're a part of last night. And I'm like, I've just always loved my work. Like whether that was cleaning toilets in my dad and mom's company when they ran a shop for 25 years, tool and mold shop. And I used to clean the toilets and drive the truck, Ford F-150. I was so happy doing that.
Amazing.
And then I worked in radio and worked in law briefly, and then in ministry, and now with what I do now. Like, I've never hated work, but I'm in the minority. Like,
Yeah.
I've read the Gallup stuff, and a lot of people who work at churches or nonprofits, they love the mission, not a big fan of the culture, not a big fan of the methods, and joy seems to be squeezed out of work. So, yeah, you got interested in this field. How did this become of interest to you? Like making work fun again?
Yeah. Well, similar to you, I have really loved my jobs, my roles. I actually grew up with a very deep-seated belief that, work is a fun place to be. So my mother was a kindergarten teacher. My father was an elementary school principal. And I remember my mom would come home from work and she'd say, I have the best days. And just like any kid growing up, you grow up in the culture of your family and you start to think, well, okay, this is normal, right? Like your parents go to work.
Everybody loves their job, right? Your home, your family is normal.
Right. Everyone feels that way. And so I grew up thinking work is a place to have fun, to enjoy your days, to enjoy your colleagues, to come home and tell stories about the highlights of your day to your family. And so actually, my first career out of college was in education. I taught 7th grade math, and then I taught high school math and physics. I often, at the end of a week, on a Friday afternoon, would sort of feel like, I have to wait 2 days till I get to see the kids again.
Oh, that's a fun place to be.
It was, yeah. Like I actually felt some sort of come down from all of the joy from the week. It was really only later that I started, through a few career pivots, then I found my way into consulting, that I started to peer into, dozens of different organizations I was consulting with and interviewing employees about their experience at work. And it was very clear I was not normal. Like this,
you realize, I'm a tiny splinter of.
Like the operations director at some Fortune 500 company was not like, I have to wait 2 more days till I get to direct more operations on Monday. And so in my consulting experience, then I took what I saw and learned and experimented with in our engagements with clients to really form a point of view on what does it take to have a good day at work. So I think about it both sort of globally in terms of, what does our society think about work? I think about it organizationally, like what are the values and the culture of an organization and how is it setting employees up to enjoy their work, to feel vibrant and alive and human. And then I think about it at the very local level of any individual human waking up. What will it take for them to have a good day? Most days, not every day. Of course, not every day is going to be fun. Work is stressful in some part because we care about it and because we're invested. But I really believe that if we are wishing away the work week, if we're saying, when is this week going to be over? When is it going to be Friday? Is it only Wednesday? We're not only wishing away the work week, we're wishing away a vast portion of our lives. And that comes from the finite amount of days that we have on this beautiful planet. And that's a problem. And so that's really where a lot of my passion comes from, my experience comes from, is trying to eradicate this question of when can this week be over? Because our days are just too precious.
I think to walk into some real life scenarios early on in the conversation, there's a lot of pastors listening to this who would say, and church leaders, not just senior pastors, but church leaders who would say, I'm in it for the mission. Like, I love my job. I love my calling. We've had other guests on, Ariana Malloy, talked about toxic calling. You love it so much that it can kill you, right? You can't quit. There's no off switch. But one of the gaps I've noticed, because I've been to a lot of different churches, Bree, is sometimes the pastor, and we're trained in seminary to be solo operators. There's not a single course on team leadership. And then you get in there and all of a sudden you have hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of people and you're a CEO. And I know there's a lot of people who don't like that language, but functionally, that's what you are. And you got to lead people. And so what I find is, when you get to a really big church, a mega church, usually they've navigated this. But for most people, the pastor can be very much in a zone where they love their job, they love their work, maybe even they're a little bit workaholic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of the staff, they're on board with the mission, but the culture is toxic. It's like this pastor texts me all night, all weekend. Notes are never ready on time for Sunday morning. They come Saturday. It killed my day with my kids. He just has unreasonable expectations. He's not organized. First of all, have you seen those contexts in the business world with solopreneurs or entrepreneurs that wouldn't be a solopreneur, entrepreneurs with small companies? And then what advice do you have both for the team members who are in that kind of toxic soup and also for the leader who might be seeing him or herself in the mirror when they hear that situation described?
Sure. Yes, I have definitely seen it.
Not a unique problem.
No, not a unique problem. And so to come at it from two different angles.
Sure.
So the leader who is, frankly, like I in all of my consulting, I have yet to meet a leader who wasn't honestly trying to do their best, like really trying with what they had or all of the forces around them. Maybe I'm just lucky in having worked with the clients I've worked with.
No, I think that's true. There are very few like truly mean, toxic, pathological pastors out there.
Right. Yeah.
Very, very few.
Yeah.
Most people are just maybe a little bit not self-aware.
Yes. And so when I think about the leader who's maybe overwhelmed, a little bit disorganized, when I think of it from someone on their team who's sort of like amidst all of this, there's a few things that you can do. So one is I am always a proponent of having open and honest conversations about leadership culture and organizational culture. And, like in the corporate world, a lot of these things happen at like, you do your yearly offsite and culture is on the agenda because maybe you have your chief people officer and they're like, but even I could imagine in a church culture, like it's important to talk about what is the felt experience of working here. So one is just like a conversation. Two, a very simple thing to do is, throw out an employee survey that you can find from lots of different vendors or you could create yourself, right? Just to get a little data and conversation. If that's still hard and like we're just not having the conversation and you as an individual just need to make it through the day, then there's lots to do because I never want to counsel people like out of a job, right? Like if they love the mission and also like unemployment, not fun, so that's like not the best alternative. Yeah. But even amidst all of the stress, there's still so much that you can do at the micro level to have a good day. So even things like, I've got dozens of these in my head. But
no, let's go there because this is the problem. I'll give you my standard answer.
Sure.
Because the conversation with the boss is awkward. And if I stand up there as a boss and I have 15 staff and I'm like, how's the culture here? Most people are going to, it's great, boss. Sure. It's wonderful. It's fantastic. Because, they don't want to get fired. And they have trouble speaking truth to their leader. Now, I have teachings, and I'm sure you have teachings on how to change that culture so people can give you real feedback. But then I hear inevitably from the people who are not the senior leader, well, we tried that and he's still not listening. So you end up in that like abyss where I'm like, okay, then you have a glass ceiling. Like either this is as good as it gets, and you got to make it as nice as it is, or you got to leave and find a better context. But you've got all kinds of hacks that are going to help. So pick up your pens and papers or your phones and start taking notes or maybe access the show notes. So let's go there. What can you do to make it a better place if you're in that situation and it's not changing?
Yes. So then you pull a move from The Office. If you watched the show, the sitcom that ran for forever, right?
Who hasn't? Yeah.
So Steve Carell is like this crazy boss, right? But what the employees did, and I think the show is brilliant because there actually is no mission. So if you have a mission, you're already a step ahead. Like their mission was paper sales. Like it was the dullest possible business. But
Yeah,
still,
good choice on the producers and creators. Right? Paper sales.
But still what they did, the employees there, they made their own fun. Sometimes even a little bit at the expense of the boss, which is like no boss's ideal team bonding plan. But on a day-to-day basis, you can still hide the stapler in a bowl of Jell-O. So I'll be more specific about like things that you can do. Micro acts of connection go a long way. Just feeling like we're in it together, especially in a tough environment, feeling like you've got some camaraderie around you, like people who get it. So one of my favorite hacks is just find out everyone you work with's middle name. It's like a super simple question. It's not too intrusive. It's also like oddly...
That's kind of fun, actually.
It's fun. You like... Whenever I do this, I hear like fun family stories, or maybe I'll make someone blush, or like you just get to know a little bit more about them at a human level. So that's one hack. Another similar one is just keep a running list of all of the pets' names of everyone you work with.
Another thing I haven't done.
Yeah. So they're like very simple micro behaviors that are not intrusive. Take 10 seconds to ask the question. And what it does is it starts to humanize the workplace. So all of a sudden you are showing up at work, even in a crazy or even a toxic environment, feeling like there's humans around me that I know, that I like. They know me, they like me. And now we can at least have like a little wink about it. Like, oh, here we go again, Saturday, and the notes aren't ready. Again, no leader's ideal team bonding plan, but and at least you have some camaraderie. Other easy hacks, one of my favorites is if you are in an office all together, have somebody play music from the year that they turned 18.
Oh, cool.
It sounds silly or ridiculous. One, it sort of defangs ageism, because then you're like, oh, cool, that came out when I was in middle school, or that came out when I was like,
I wasn't born.
2 jobs
You get to
in.
my stage. Mm-hmm.
Right?
I wasn't born yet. Mm-hmm.
And also, it's like, I was at this dance exercise class the other week and they played some Pearl Jam. And I was like, this is my happy place. Like there's nothing like your teenage music to like make your day better.
Yeah, that was college for me, Pearl Jam. That was great.
Okay, so we're all, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a few years ahead, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
totally.
those sort of like micro actions of what do you have autonomy over? I know that I can make a connection with a colleague. I know that I can do something about my environment that's going to lift my spirits. And if that gets you through day to day, well, then maybe that's a great place to start, and then, from there you do the employee satisfaction survey.
You said something really interesting, something you have autonomy over. And I think that's what we forget. It's the focus on what you can control, not on what you can't control. I think another word for that, and feel free to, substitute or whatever, is agency.
Yeah.
And in the age of AI, a lot of people are thinking about agency. How do I, and algorithms. How do I make sure I'm watching what I want to watch, not what the algorithm told me to watch, right? That kind of thing.
Yes.
So when it comes to agency, I think we're in a cultural moment where a lot of people have unwittingly surrendered a lot of their agency. They feel like victims. They feel like I haven't got control over this. So when it comes to agency at work, let's say you're not the executive level. So you're not even in the C-suite.
Mm-hmm.
How do you have agency over your work when you're 3 levels down?
Yeah. So what I would advise, so I think of it sort of, how cats will find the one corner of sunlight in your house, right? Like they just find their way. And sometimes my cat is even like squished into it. She's like that dedicated to her vitamin D. That's how I think about how leaders, even a few rungs down, can kind of find a corner of organizational sunlight for themselves. And then also anyone they manage, if there are a couple people below them or not. But in those environments, so for example, when I lead project teams in consulting, there's other project teams around us in the organization. There's like the larger organization. And sometimes that can all be really good, but my goal is still to create the corner of organizational sunlight for my team. So what that looks like is the micro acts of connection I mentioned, Sometimes mischief goes a long way, which I don't know, mischief in church, but like
Oh, no,
light mischief.
we had when I was lead pastor, we had a lot of fun at work. A lot of fun, a lot of jokes, a lot of inside jokes, a lot of self-deprecating humor, lots of activities. And same with my team now. Like we're a virtual company, but when we get together, we got everybody flying in next month. Like we're going to have a blast. We're going to have a blast. Yeah.
Right? Like what are the things that feel like maybe a little not right to do, but are so fun? Like
a little not right to do.
Yeah. Well, like for example, I got some side eye when I rearranged the furniture in our office, and facilities was like, you're not supposed to rearrange the furniture in the office. But I was like, oh, we're just hanging out a little bit better. I actually like brought in a picnic blanket and put it on the floor so that like we made like a little bit of a picnic park scene for ourselves at work. It did not destroy any mission or bottom line. It was just for fun. And almost the fact that we got a little bit in trouble for it was kind of part of the fun, And so, I think
I was always in trouble at school, including university, for just crossing that line of being a little bit too much fun. Inappropriate fun. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like it's good fun, good natured fun. So I would consider all of these things. These are sort of like broadly, when I think about fun at work, there's either you can make the work itself more fun. I think of that as like, can we make work like steak, like juicy and delicious and you want more of it? Or sometimes work is just broccoli and you're like, I can't do anything about it. That's just what's been served to me by the higher ups, in which case you put some cheese on that. And that cheese is you are like rearranging the furniture, like having a laugh with each other, all of those kinds of things. And that's okay too. Sometimes that's just the situation you're in.
Yeah. The thing that was so nice about The Office, and I think most people have watched The Office or rewatched it numerous times, is often that camaraderie 2 levels down turns into cynicism. Complaints about the boss, eye rolling about the boss, and everyone's got some narrative, inside jokes about the boss that everybody but the boss and maybe the next in charge knows. And that's not particularly healthy. It's not healthy in the corporate world, not healthy. And The Office kind of avoided that because Michael was in on most of the jokes, right?
And was most of the jokes. Way, I suppose.
And was most of the jokes, to be honest. So any tips on how to avoid that toxic, because I've been in churches where clearly that's the case. Everybody but the boss knows that everybody but the senior pastor knows that the senior pastor is the problem. And everyone's got like inside jokes or eye rolls or come over here and let me tell you something,
right.
Kind of stuff. How do you avoid that kind of context in a workplace?
Totally. Yeah. So speaking now to the pastor, the CEO, the boss, like what are some things that you can do? So one is a mindset and then one is a practice or a tool I'll share. So the mindset first is you have to show people that you value their days. Sort of simple in a way. It's more extreme, I would say, in the corporate environment where people are deemed human resources and we think of resources as things to be extracted to their maximum.
You could be a machine or you could be an AI, but right now you're a person, so we'll keep you.
Right? Yeah, it's like businesses are designed to extract resources. Like that's almost their remit is to like get as much as you can from your resources, deliver as much on the other end. And so, when I'm advising leaders, I think the same is true in churches, is you have to resist the urge to extract more, which is, sure, you could maybe get someone to do night work or weekend work or catch up on but that's extracting above and beyond what was the deal in the first place. And so that mindset, if I can think of the humans not as things to extract, but the most valuable thing I have in my job is to support them to do their best work, then I'm doing things like instead of asking them to stay late and finish some report, I'm thinking, okay, can we move that report deadline to the next day? And instead, can I say like, hey, you've been working a lot this week. Do you want to like knock off early and get to your kid's softball game?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like that's not taking a deposit or taking a withdrawal, like that's making a deposit into that person, and it's sort of transactional language. But we have to be thinking about like, if we think of our employees, in other words, more like the players on a football team, you're not trying to extract from them. In fact, what you're trying to do is set them up with the best trainers, the best nutritionists. You're making sure that you are putting everything into them so that they can perform at their best. So that's sort of the different.
So that's a boss's mindset that
Yes.
we need to get into, that we're not extracting value. You're not going to squeeze every juice out of the orange, but a juice out of the orange. It's what we want, as my friend Jeff Henderson says, who's been on this podcast numerous times, it's what we want for them, not what we want from them.
Yes. And then they take care of the rest. So I offer this mindset because when people can feel that, like I'm cared about because I'm a human who has value and my days have value, and then I'm not side-eyeing the boss and I'm not whispering about the boss, right? I've got the boss's back because they've got mine, right?
That's better than a no gossip and no making fun of the boss policy, which I think a lot of bosses have thought about, right?
Which is so fast going to be a meme that gets shared
Oh,
around.
yeah, exactly.
Like, don't even try.
No longer allowed to make fun of boss, Slack channel. Yeah, exactly. Private Slack channel, don't include the boss. No, you're right. But if people know that you have their back, and I would say I was, I led my first few years. And again, seminary doesn't prepare you for this. Law school didn't prepare you for this. I didn't know how to lead people. And I had not fully an extraction model, but that was like, how can I squeeze the most out of people? And what I've realized, fortunately years ago, is a much better approach is the better my boundaries are and the better I respect their boundaries, the more ironically I get from them. It's a byproduct,
sure.
But people are going to give you their best, like when they're on the clock, and they're not going to cheat the system. And if you have those fun moments and the great culture, you're going to get a team of A players, if you hire well, that really produces, loves their job, and has a life. Like, right now while we're recording this, I've got my digital media manager at her son's high school graduation. She took half a day off.
Amazing.
It's like, I want her to take the day off.
Yes.
I want her, my assistant's going off for a week next week for a family retreat or something like that, vacation. I'm like, awesome. That's great. Like, I want that for them. And because I want that for them, guess what? When they show up, they show up.
Yeah.
And they don't drop balls.
Totally.
But that took me a long time to figure out.
Yeah. And I get that too, because it's not normal. Like the normal system.
That isn't normal?
Well, no. I mean, the default system is an employee extracts as much money as possible and the employer extracts as much time, energy, skills as possible. Like that's the normal
We're
system.
opposed to each other. Right.
As opposed to I've got you and I've got you, conversely, like that's the positive feedback loop. So that's one thing. In a practical sense, in order to avoid that grapevine, I often think of a grapevine as there are emotions that got pushed underground because they weren't welcome above ground. And so when we think about like the whispers or the DMs of like, oh, can you even believe this? The antidote to that sort of whispering jokes about the boss is just bring that conversation above ground. So my very best trick is something that I call a check-in. So you could do this at a leadership meeting or just like an all-staff meeting, maybe in small groups. But you just ask everybody, how are you feeling? You could say today, or you could say over the past week. But on a daily basis, how are you feeling today on a scale of 1 to 5? Hold it up on your hands, 3, 2, 1, and everyone puts up, I'm a 4, I'm a 2, I'm a 1 on their hands. And then you take 30 seconds and run around the room and say why. So you could do this in a virtual meeting as well. And people say like, honestly, like I'm pretty stressed out. We have this event next week. I don't know how it's going to go, but also it's going to be my birthday this weekend. So I'm excited about that. So I'm a 4. If you do this on a regular basis, it's sort of like flushing the pipes of, how people are feeling. So that stress about the event next week, that's not going underground where people are like, can you believe the boss is having us do this event and we don't have the resources and like they are, is this even the right use of time? Right? But if they can say that out loud, I'm stressed about the event. I feel like maybe we don't have everything we need. Now, the right people are hearing that and people want to feel heard, right? Like they value having their experience seen. And so then once you as the boss are in the conversation, there's no more grapevine. Now you're part of the solution.
That's a great idea. We do a check-in on our team meetings just to see how people are doing, and I'm interested in their whole life. How was the weekend? What did you do? What's going on? I do that in the one-on-ones. It's sort of the approach of ask people how they're doing before you ask them what they're doing.
So good and catchy. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's one of those things too. It takes a while for them. Oh, like you actually care. I'm not going to phone this in, but you can get it. So what advice, that's really helpful from anything else for people who are 1 or 2, 3 levels down in the organization for agency or what they can do so that they're like the cat finding the sunshine. They find the joy in the journey and reclaim some agency at work?
Yeah. I would say people are different in terms of what brings them joy at work. Some people really like learning. Some people really like making. Some people actually don't like learning. They just want to be really, really good at the one thing that they do and do it lots of times. I say, great, do that thing,
Yeah.
Some people are just like in it for the camaraderie. I think that's fine too. Some people are in it for the impact. I would imagine a lot of people are in it to see the impact. So at that local level, if you can figure out what it is that lights you up, even a simple thought experiment, like over the course of a day or a week, when did I feel most alive? Like when did I feel most lit up? And then how can I replicate that? So if it was talking to a member of the church and they said something really nice about that event that you stressed over, well, maybe, I don't know, can you spend 5 more minutes, after a service just chatting with people? Would that fill you up in a different kind of way?
That's a good counsel for those of us who are bosses, because I think we all want people, I want people to love what I love.
Right. Yeah.
I love creating. I love new. I'm working on a book right now. I am in my glory. I found the topic. I found the words. I'm like so excited about it. And I want everybody to be excited about it. A lot of pastors would say, I'm excited about the mission. Or honestly, I'm excited about my sermons. Because whatever we're involved in tends to be the thing we're most excited about. But I think it's fair. Like if you have 25 staff, you might have 25 different light bulbs that go off for different things. I really like my colleagues. I love getting out of the house and going to an office and doing meaningful work. I love having coffee with people. I love spreadsheets,
Yeah.
that kind of thing, right? And I think bosses, I'm putting words in your mouth, so feel free to finesse. But bosses have to realize that, there's a diversity of gifts and there's a diversity of passions and inspirations that are going to light people up at work. Is that what you're trying to say?
For sure. And that's great. Like you want the person who loves the spreadsheets. You want the person that's also like super good at their thing and just wants to do that all day. Like it takes all kinds to run a world and also a business. And I think that's a really beautiful thing. So as long as obviously people understand their roles and their parts, if different things bring different people joy, like some people just aren't into the team bonding thing. That's okay. Like the extroverts will find each other. Like
Stanley
that's okay
on The
too.
Office. Right? Every office has a Stanley.
Right. And like that's all cool. And I think it's part of sort of humanizing the workplace again, which is a mission of mine. It's just making it okay to show up as who you are with what you enjoy and letting that be something that's valued, that we don't all have to enjoy exactly the same thing. But I think you're right. A lot of bosses will think like, this is what's most important, and therefore I must make sure everyone feels that it's important. But and
add the church into it, religion into it, mission. And you've got like, well, of course it has to be important. What's more important than Jesus?
Right.
True. And yet, there's still diversity within that.
And some people are just going to want to stack the coffee cups like super well, and like that's going to bring them joy. Great.
That brings me joy too. Okay, that's super helpful. So for the boss, by the way, I want to come back to humanizing the workplace because I want to talk about AI. I was just in New York, saw some things that were really interesting, and I want to get your take on it. But when it comes to the boss, who maybe now some light bulbs are going on in their head, what can they do if they realize, oh yeah, I'm the guy texting the team Saturday about all the changes I'm making for Sunday's message, emailing them at 5:30 a.m. and 10 p.m. just because my laptop was open. Or, I think we have a fun culture, but probably looking around. I don't think the team thinks we have a fun culture. What's their next steps? What are the questions they should be asking, the steps they should be taking? What's your advice for that senior pastor, senior leader in that situation, Bree?
Yeah. So my default guidance, which works in many situations, is always just say what you're thinking. So if I were that pastor in the next team meeting, I would say, look, team, I'm feeling like a little uneasy about the fact that I've been sending all these Saturday notes about revising things for Sunday, about that I'm sending 9 p.m. messages. On the one hand, I feel like, well, that's what we have to do to get things together. Like if I could have done it earlier, I would have. And so I want to make sure that we're doing our best, but also I'm kind of worried about like, how are you all receiving that? Like, and what is the impact? And also, does anyone have any ideas for like, should we switch up the schedule for how Sunday prep goes? And like, so that's what I'm thinking. How are you all feeling and what do you think? Like the amount of engagement and enrollment that you will garner from just being honest about it. Because now everybody's on your side. Everyone's like, hey, yeah, that is kind of rough. Let's fix it together. I had this idea for maybe we could do like a draft on Thursday and, whatever it is. But you want to enroll people in, and also in supporting you and being the best leader that you can, because you can't read people's minds. Like maybe some people are like, actually, the Saturday notes are fine because we can't get around that. But if we could not message after 6 p.m. on weekdays, that would really help me to detail, whatever it is. It's just having those conversations and telling that truth and exposing some vulnerability is not a weakness. It's actually endearing you to the people that you're working with.
In your consulting work and your work, and you've worked with hundreds, maybe thousands of corporations, in your estimation, what percentage of CEOs/senior leaders actually have that kind of conversation?
Fewer. Well, when I work with them, I try to make it. The number gets a little higher, I hope. Definitely fewer than should be. And I think
it's a minority, isn't it? It's a small
definitely
percentage.
A minority. Because I think conventional leadership guidance is always be strong. Don't show weakness. If you do, your people will start to doubt you or think, wonder if you know what you're doing, that you always have to present as positive and optimistic. And so sure, yeah, like I like optimistic leaders too. Like I like confident leaders, but there will inevitably be things in any organization that aren't going perfectly. And if a leader is not acknowledging it, then employees start to feel one of two ways. Either like, do they not see it? Do they not see how hard it is to be messaged all nights and weekends? Do they not care about it? And so you start to get some of that grapevine that we talked about. So it's ironic, but actually the stronger move is as a leader to say, I'm very aware of the experience of working here, of the experience of working with me. I want to make it the best that I can. Like that's a move of strength, even though it's not sort of conventionally seen that way.
Yeah, I'm with you. And you know what? I learned that probably in my late 30s, early 40s, to do that and be more transparent. And I wish I'd known it out of the gate. I did not know it out of the gate, but what a difference it makes. Can you tell us when you're sitting there as a second or third chair leader and your senior pastor gets up and goes, I know we have some issues here and I've been thinking about it. And the last minute changes that suck up your day off and the 9 p.m. emails and the 5:30 a.m. texts are probably a problem. And you even said it better than me. But they're kind of confessing, which is something we're supposed to do as Christians. They're being transparent. What goes on in the mind, just for the leaders listening who are like, I don't know whether I could do that. What goes on in the mind of your team members who report to you all the way down, whether that's 20 or 200, when you have a conversation with them like that? What's happening in the room? What's happening to your team? What are they thinking? What are they feeling?
they are breathing a sigh of relief because their experience is being seen in a way that perhaps it hadn't been seen before. As humans, when we feel seen and cared for, like there is no greater feeling. And it's a form of love, right? Like to care so much that you're willing to have a difficult conversation and you're willing to truly empathize with the others around you whose lives are being impacted by your. So quite literally in that situation, if I was hearing that, I would be thinking, oh my gosh, I'm so glad we're going to get to talk about this.
Yeah.
Like maybe there's a little hope for this being different. Like I feel like, I think that pastor noticed that like I was working late, that was time away from my kids or my sleep or, my family. Like that was seen. I just thought that was expected of me, but that was actually appreciated. Like, wow, okay. And then maybe we could make that a bit different. Like those are the things going through my head. It's validation, it's hope, it's gratitude, all of those things. And, you don't even have to start big. It's not that I would ask any leader to be like, I'm worried I'm being a terrible leader, right? Like that's,
Right.
it's just like,
Don't be melodramatic.
no, like you're being a great leader who's trying their best with the time that they are given in the day and the resources that you have, And so that's part of sort of endearing people to the solution as well, is to say, the reason I do that is because during the day, I'm doing all these other things and the messages fall to the evenings. And I'm trying my best to get everything ready for Sunday, but Saturday always ends up being a day, and now people are seeing like, I see your experience, leader. Like I see where you're coming from. And it's not a carelessness about my time. It was, I did my best with business hours and then I had to flow over. And that's also part of the solution, is because also leadership is lonely. Like
Yes.
speaking of being seen, like most leaders I work with don't feel seen and feel like they are carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders, that they're largely alone in it. And so also what a relief to have a group of people around you say, like empathize with you and to say like, we're going to help you carry that weight too. We know that things have to go well on Sunday. Let's figure out how to plan better with you. Like it's when leaders are vulnerable in that way, like when I've been vulnerable in that way with teams, I'm overwhelmed with the amount of support that I feel in return. Because the people on the team will be like, Bree, we've got you. We've got this. Let's figure it out. It's like really a pretty profound experience because then you're really in it with people. Like that's what true teamwork feels like when you're like really truly in it with each other. And it's worth trying, even in a very small way, about evening text messages.
So Bree, once in a while I can see doing a course correction. So somebody listening to this podcast is like, I got to do that at the next staff meeting. Get it. But things drift. You fall back into old habits, new patterns emerge. The church grew, now you're busier than ever. How do you bake this into the culture so that you're not doing once every 3 years, big talk, we got to make this better, and then it's back to usual, or new problems creep up that are unaddressed? How do you bake in that kind of honesty, feedback culture? You can do the check-in, I think what you mentioned, but I'd love some other practical strategies for church leaders to make sure that we don't drift too far from that core.
Sure. So one is like the good old fashioned offsite, or if not like for a whole day, just a few hours, maybe quarterly or something like that. I have a really simple 4-question sequence that you can ask people. So feel free to steal this and put this in your next offsite. The question for everybody, it's an open discussion, is what's changing? Like what's either rising or falling? What's becoming more important or less important? What's changing in our organization or church? That's the first question. Quite literally, what you can have people do is write down on Post-its what they're seeing so they don't sort of they have time to think for themselves, and then you can all share around. The second question is, why is it changing? So maybe if the first is like our membership is growing exponentially, the second question is, well, why is it changing? Oh, well, we're doing all these new things, and our efforts have really helped. The third question is, what happens to us if this change continues? So if you're growing at the rate that you're growing, what's going to happen if nothing else changes? Like, oh, we're not going to have enough space. We're not going to have enough people. We're not going to have. And then the fourth question is, let's assume this change will continue. What do we want to change now to be proactive? And so in the situation of growth, maybe it's, well, let's just put up a job listing just to poke around in case we get to the point of needing to hire someone to help with XYZ. Or now we're needing to do like 2 community events a week as opposed to 1 event a week. Let's schedule a day to block all of those out on the calendar now before they just like hit us in the face week to week. So it's a simple, are you laughing? Events.
I'm laughing with you. Those are such simple, clarifying questions. Where have you been all my life? Thank you.
Yeah. So it's, anyway, the way you bake it in is through rituals. So that's just one ritual so that you have, and just put it on the calendar. Once a quarter is fine. Once a month if things are changing really quickly, so that you have a dedicated time to talk about what's changing and what you're going to do about it. The other trick to sort of avoid the slide is for any new process, meeting, any new thing that you're putting into place, like we're going to do our budgeting like this, give it a tripwire, give it an end date, an expiration date. We're going to try our budgeting process like this for 6 months, and then literally put on the calendar a meeting to say, review if budgeting process is working. And so often we try new processes or like ways to run our organizations, and then we just sort of like let them go on forever. And we don't stop and do a retrospective on, did this work or not? And so even for any new process or just any existing process, just try and bake in at least every 6 months, what's working about this, what's not working about this, and what do we change?
That's so good. And you know what? That works because something's always changing. Mm-hmm. That works in a season of growth. It works in a season of stagnation, works in a season of decline. And often we don't take the time to look at the meta issues that are causing the stress fractures in our workflow. So those 4 questions are making it directly into my next team offsite, into my personal retreats. Such a gift. I want to talk about humanizing the workforce. I'm doing in the middle, maybe the early stages of a very, very deep dive into artificial intelligence and how it's going to disrupt culture, the workplace, the church, etc. But where we sit in mid-2025 is, if you read the headlines, college students can't get jobs because ChatGPT is doing the job of entry-level workers in the knowledge field. Like, they're not going to serve burgers and fries. AI, not yet. Maybe humanoid robots one day will make your French fries perfect. I don't know. But right now, that's still the purview of 15-year-olds. But like, college grads can't get jobs. I was just up the road from you in Manhattan a couple weeks ago and toured, I won't say the name of the company, but everybody would know exactly who it is. Multi-billion-dollar company headquartered in New York. And they had the most beautiful tech office space you could imagine, Silicon Valley dream, like $10,000 sound isolating chairs that you could just sit in and work in, like stuff that, nonprofit church leaders could never dream of. Beautiful. Ate in the cafeteria. My salad, not one brown leaf of lettuce. I don't know whether they grew it instantly before I ate it. Chefs, baristas, you name it.
Wow.
But morale was low. And morale was low because they had just laid off a whole bunch of workers for no particular reason other than profit maximization and AI.
Yeah.
And Microsoft just laid off a lot of people earlier this year. Google is shutting down its search division because of AI and giving optional buyouts. So, there's a plausible theory that white collar workers are going to suffer badly in the initial waves of AI. So any comments on that? And then I want to talk about the jobs that endure and what you said earlier about making the workplace more human, because my working thesis is the ultimate antidote to AI is to become more human. But
Yeah.
I don't think humanity's ever, unless we become extinct or the second coming from a Christian worldview point, I think we're going to want human things, and I want to figure out what those are. But first of all, any general reflections on artificial intelligence and how it could be a disruptor for the white collar world?
I mean, it will be. It is, right? Like,
You're seeing it too in New York a little bit?
I mean, for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
What are you seeing?
well, it's just what you're talking about. It's like the jobs that were once deemed safe are no longer safe,
Yeah.
quote unquote.
Yeah.
So for a long time, it was like, oh, AI is going to help you draft a better email, and it's kind of doing that. But now it's like, oh, no, it's going to do all the coding. So, I
software engineers
taught school at a time when it was like, teach your kids to code. That's going to be the skill of the future. And now it's sort of like, is it? Like, is that, has that come and gone? So, and yes, and then there's just frankly layoffs all over the place. This is like, honestly, I'm still wrapping my head around this.
I think everybody is.
Yes, right. Like, what I hope from a leadership perspective, this is what I hope in a utopian world. Probably won't happen most places, but one can dream. As we talked about, businesses are designed to extract their resources and deliver value and do so as efficiently as possible. And in the corporate world, gather as much profit as possible is the setup. So in that sort of world, burnout is rife for the reasons we talked about, because you're extracting from people, and being extracted is exhausting and leads to burnout. It's ironic because when we are exhausting and doing those like evening messages and weekend work, we're just like, oh, I wish there could be a technology that would come along that could do a bunch of my work for me so I could sign off at 5 p.m. and relax on the weekends. Like, if only there were a technology that could do some of that work. And then the universe is like, here you go. Like, here's the technology that can replace a lot of your work. But instead of leaders and businesses being like, thank you, finally we have some balance. Finally, things like 4-day work weeks are on the table that never. No, instead of that, it's like, well, let's reduce the workforce, still maximize profits, still squeeze the people. Let's not like ease up on the burnout.
Yeah.
And
that's true.
That's just how capitalism works, which is annoying, but there is another way. And I'm interested in what are the organizations that will take the efficiencies of AI and just make a better life for the people within their organizations. Now, that's like a tall order. And maybe people are listening are like, that's never going to happen. But the reason I feel so passionately about talking about like humanizing business is because we forget that like it's just us here on the planet. Like, we are the workers that we are designing for, and so if we've designed ourselves into obsolescence or burnout, like we're doing it wrong. And so I hope that there will be some, corners of sunshine in the world where there's actually organizations that are using AI to make people, bionic in some way, like better at their work and more, more capable and more balanced. But frankly, like there, of course, will still be the layoffs. And I have a 10-year-old daughter. I worry about like, what are her career prospects going to be like?
A lot of parents are thinking about that now because it's a mid-shift correction. What you thought about her future when she was 6, you can't think about it the same way now that she's 10. Is that accurate?
Yeah. I just don't know what opportunities are going to be available. And I just have to have some faith that like what I do hope for and where I do have some faith is that as long as we, the humans, are the customers of companies or of churches, humans will always value human connection and other human-made things. And so I joke sometimes that we're going to have like little stickers on products or content that says human made, in the way that we have organic stickers on our produce.
Yeah.
It's going to be like made by humans, and it's going to be a premium because people still value that. Or, if you think in a church setting, like people value feeling alive and feeling inspired.
Mhm.
And as much as a chatbot can like really give, like try, and some do, like some really, they're being used for therapy now. There will still be no replacement for like human art, human gathering, human connection, human hope and inspiration. So I'm hanging my head on that.
Yeah, I am too. And I wonder if it's going to be a hybrid world. Like, I got a coffee bar upstairs this year, sorry. Friends who are really into coffee said, we have extra. Would you like some? Well, the only answer to that question is yes. So got this beautiful espresso machine that I probably wouldn't have bought on my own. And then my wife and I, we could order something off Amazon for $5 or something, but we were at a craft show, just local artists. And we met this artist, and she made us some little cortado cups that are just gorgeous. When people come over, they're like, what are these? These are beautiful. Well, these were handmade by Lisa. And, they were $25 each, not $5 or $15 each on Amazon. But that premium, made by humans, I'm thinking even content will have to be labeled. Like this is 100% human conversation. But then you have deep fakes and everything. So I think there is a premium for that. What, though, does that look like? Have you thought through, and I'm putting you on the spot here, this wasn't in the question list, but we can cut it out if it doesn't work. Like the jobs that are most at risk in the next few years, like what are you seeing in New York? Because it's moving really quickly at scale in major centers now, where literally tens of thousands of excellent paying white collar jobs are disappearing week by week.
Yeah. I'm worried about any analytical job, right? Like it's already panning out at places like McKinsey, like any of the sort of like entry level, put together a market analysis kind of thing, right? No longer needed. I worry about, my husband's a data scientist, we talk all the time about like, and he's quite a senior data scientist. So he's not even just like typing and producing code all day, like he's thinking about the data strategy for an organization. But still, we talk about like how long before AI is really good at that. So anything analytical.
And that could be like investments, right?
Yes.
AI is probably going to be better at analyzing the markets than a top professional. It goes to law. A lot of people are talking about entry-level law jobs disappearing because a lot of it is just moving words on a page and boilerplates and that kind of thing.
Yes. So for sure, there's the people who do that sort of analytical work, I think first are at risk. And then there's the people who manage that, who actually like deploy that we need a report on this. We need like this for the client and it should look like that. But I think that's coming next, perhaps.
With agentic AI, with AI doing all the work for you?
I think so, because AI, I think, will just get more, it'll move from like functional replacement to strategic replacement. So instead of saying, or like an easy example is like, right now you can say like, make me this app that does these things. The next wave of that is, what app should I make? Based on like what people need and trends and what, And so when you get to that strategic level, that's the new level of scary. And then frankly, like I'm also worried about creative professions. So like marketing or communications. I think the arts
like
have a
Facebook
little...
in 2026 is all AI ads. And with the latest from Google and VO, like you can't tell the difference between AI now and real life. So actors, creatives, writers, I could sit here, I haven't done it, but I could use that software to produce a killer video. And then what happens? And, ad agencies, even in a church, like social media manager, That's now a series of prompts, or, one of our partners, church.tech, et cetera, just takes that over with some prompts, slices and dices your message for you. It's all done by AI, which is great because you still need someone to run it. But it's going to be very different. So that goes back to the main, because we could do 17 hours on this. I'm literally writing a book on this right now. So we'll see if it comes out. I'll see what pops out in a few months when I'm done. I'm obsessed with this. I'm thinking about it day and night, and drives my team crazy right now because I'm so obsessed with it. But I'm trying to figure it out. And I think the church has a role to play. But that goes back to the earlier thing that you said. How do you humanize work? Is it the difference between buying greenhouse grown carrots and going to the farmer's market? Because not everybody can afford to go to the farmer's market, right? Particularly where there's mass unemployment. But when we're thinking about the jobs and the touches that are going to inform our work in the future, also understanding we have no idea what AI is going to produce 6 months from now, let alone 6 years from now. But what are your initial thoughts anyway, or current thoughts on humanizing work? Because I think us humans, we were designed, in my faith perspective, by God for a purpose. And that purpose has something to do with creating.
Yeah. Yeah. I will always believe that a human day matters. So that's sort of where I start from in all of this. Human days have value, and it's sort of weird that we forget that. We remember that acutely at the end of life when you're an oncologist is trying to save more days for a cancer patient, or you're trying to extend life. But we forget that in health, we also throw away our days. That we're just trying to get through the week, move through the motions, just get through it. And so if we start from the premise that our days really matter, that one human day on this planet is a beautiful thing that shouldn't be wasted, from that premise then comes, how do you want to show up as a human at work? And how do you feel most alive, most human in a workplace, both in terms of your experience of the day and in terms of what you produce? So experience-wise, I feel most alive when I'm hanging out with people who I think are smart and funny and we're laughing. I would always want that to be true. I do not want to have a bunch of agents as coworkers, even if they can spew out dad jokes or something,
Yeah.
That artificiality. I value the human connections around me. So there's sort of that sort of question of how do you humanize the work? And that's a whole other train of thinking of, can we get rid of this sort of performative professionalism and needing to be all buttoned up and back to my questions about what's your middle name? Those sorts of humanizing things. But then on the other end, it's the things that we create, there's so much pride in creation. And I think of businesses, it's a little poetic to say, but businesses are just self-expression at scale. Any business is expressing a point of view on the world. I think the world should be more like this, and therefore we are making it so. And that comes from humans. That comes from a human belief, a human self-expression. I mean, even a bank is I believe people should have a secure place to put their money. That's a belief, right? And so you try to make that more true. And so the more that we can lean into that sort of self-expression of, I think the better. And AI can help patch the holes and do some of the things that we don't want to do. But still, fundamentally, I would hope that forever the humans are in charge of the world we want to build. That we are still the ones imagining what the good life looks like. And then maybe deploying some agents to help us get there.
Yeah.
But, if we don't at least have that, then we've lost to the robots. And
well, you're taking us back to Genesis 1. That is kind of the mandate. That's a really good thought. If you could hand every leader a sticky note to put on their laptop, to put on their computer, what would it say?
I made some stickers for the book. We made some swag. So I actually have an answer.
I love it. You're already ahead of
me. Yeah. So there's one sticker. It says "Good laughs with good people," and this comes from a story I tell in the book that I wrote. I was at this rehab facility with my mom. She had this complex ankle surgery. She was like needed to be somewhere where they could care for her. Anyway, we'd go there every day, my dad and I, to visit. And they would often have a performer there to sort of like boost morale. And one day the performer was doing old Sinatra classics. And one of them was the song My Way. And it's like taking everybody back. And he ends that set by saying, what more could you want in life than to have had some good laughs with good people? And I'm looking around this room. I mean, it was like my mom was in her 60s, but she was sort of the younger end of the clientele,
Yeah,
and,
sure.
Everyone is like, yes, yes. And I'm like starting to cry. And I'm like, that, it's so beautiful. And it's not, I don't mean those words as a call to hedonism. It's not like, oh, you just want to like sit around and laugh. It's honoring that the most beautiful parts of our lives are the connections we have with other humans, and the work, that we can do in the world we don't need to equate struggle with greatness. That actually enjoying our days on this planet, serving other people, laughing with other people, that's a really, really good use of a human life. And so
it is actually.
And so I have that little sticker, good laughs with good people, as a reminder to like, when you're texting at 9 p.m., like, oh, did we forget to do this thing for tomorrow? It's just a reflection. Did you have some good laughs with good people today? And if not, hey, you're not going to get it every day. Try again tomorrow.
Yeah. I think fun might become, you still got to be profitable or, solvent, but fun will be a big attractor in the future economy, I think. The things that make us different. Rather than the same. What's one question no one's asked you yet about work that you wish they would ask you?
I guess you could ask me what my first job was.
What was your first job? Let's go there. That's great.
I worked in a magic show. I was
Really?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
How did that happen? And how old were you?
So I was 18. This was the summer before college. Actually, that wasn't actually my first. My first job, I worked in a doctor's office filing patient reports. So that's not as fun. This is the more fun answer. So I was always a dancer growing up. I did ballet and jazz. And so there was an opening for a dancer assistant for a magic show at Six Flags, Great America, outside of Chicago. And I was like, yeah, I want to do that. So we did 5 shows a day. I learned all the tricks. We like made a NASCAR appear and,
wow,
made a
some
Harley.
Big time magic.
Yeah, it was really cool. There were smoke and mirrors and everything. And it was a great day at work.
That sounds like fun. I saw an illusionist earlier this year or mentalist, I guess he calls himself. And it was mind-blowing what he did. Like really amazing. That's always interested me. It's like, hey, that could be a fun little hobby, That's great. Yeah. So that was your first job.
And now that I think about it, like illusionist, that's a job that AI is probably not going to take, Yeah. So if you're looking for a backup career,
illusionist.
Yeah.
Great. Well, your book is called Today Was Fun. It is a fun book. Bree, where can people find more about you and your book online?
Yes, you can get it anywhere books are sold. For more about me, my website is breegroff.com or BREEGROFF.com. And from there, you can find my Substack to order the book or find me on LinkedIn.
That's awesome. Bree, this has been really helpful. You helped a lot of leaders today. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me. It was indeed a lot of fun.